Well, hey everybody, it's a video that I've been wanting to make for quite a while because I've had viewers that have made comments about low light performance with a lot of these action cameras. How does it do in low light? How does it do in low light? Oh, it sucks in low light. This video is going to kind of tell you a little bit about why action cameras suffer in low light, and it's a very easy way to conceptualize the difference between a larger camera that records video or a camcorder, which is what I'm recording on right now, or an action camera. So I'm going to show you those little subtle details between the two that will maybe hopefully help a lot of people out there that are getting into action cameras, but they're very disappointed with their low light performance. By the way, my name is Andre. Worth it or not, I tell you about products. I do product reviews to let you know, is it a good product or is it not a good product, or is it a medium product? But just to let you know, is it worth buying or not, so I can try to help you either save some money or avoid a problem. So if you're new here, consider subscribing, click on the little bell so that you're notified every time I upload a video, and we're going to get to this part right now. Got to make sure my Canadian hat is able to be seen, because Expedite Travels, I had no idea that he was up in Canada. So, but anyway, it's my little souvenir from Canada. Loved it up there, loved the weather. We're looking forward to going back, but I want to talk about action cameras. Now, I'm not specifically talking about the Akaso V50X, but I'm just talking about cameras, action cameras in general. Whether you've got a GoPro, whether you've got some of the lesser expensive, an SJ Cam, the Akaso, the Fireflies, why do they all suffer in low light? And we're going to explain it right now. So now we're going to look at a no-name action camera, because I've taken the branding off. And what I want to do is always make sure that you take out the battery, by the way. We're going to take off the lens and take a look at the size of the sensor inside of here. You want to do this carefully. Try to always, ahead of time, cut some of the glue loose between the lens and the housing. Which is something I've already done. I've taken an X-Acto knife and I've come in and you just cut around the edge here. Because once you cut around this edge, you kind of break some of this glue loose. And what they do is at the factory, they go ahead and they focus it, have a little bit of glue on it. So once it's definitely in focus, then you're good to go. So this is what I want to show you. Try to get a good shot of that. So that right there is the image sensor. If you look all the way in there, that is the image sensor for this camera. So when you're talking about low light from action cameras, and there are some action cameras that you have the ability to adjust ISO, and you can adjust the exposure value for the video, not just the photos, which is great. But even though that you have that ability, that image sensor can only get so and so much light. So when you start dropping the ISO down to 100 and you bump up the exposure value to try to get some better low light, all that you're doing is just introducing a ton of noise. And to kind of prove my point, I want to show you this. Here's the Canon M50. Great little camera. It has an APS-C sensor in it. So we'll pop the lens off. So that is the size of the sensor compared to the size of the sensor that is in this action camera. And as much as I enjoy the Canon M50, it still suffers in low light. And look how much larger that sensor is. When you compare them side by side, look at the difference in size. This sensor has the ability to gather in much more light than what the action camera can, but it still suffers in low light. And then now we look at the Lumix G7 Micro Four Thirds sensor. So you see the size of the sensor on the Lumix compared to the size of the sensor of this little action camera. Now I'll even put the Canon, see if I can get both of these in frame, side by side. So you see the size of the sensor between the Canon M50 here and then the Lumix G7. And if these suffer in low light, why in the world would anyone think that an action camera with a sensor that is only that big, or should I say that small, be able to perform so well? So I just want to make this video just for those of you that are out there that are looking at an action camera, but you want to be able to get a full-size sensor type of low light performance. It's just not going to happen. These action cameras are meant for action. They are meant for daylight. They are meant for outside daylight when you've got nice bright sun, or even if you're inside of a place that has a ton of lighting, so it's very well lit, you can mess with the ISO and the exposure value a little bit to kind of bump it up and get more of a daytime footage or daytime light scenario, but you're still going to suffer from low light with these cameras. So when you're looking at your action camera and you're trying to get something out of the action camera that it was not made for it, these action cameras, some perform a little bit better, some will actually sneak a little bit, and what they'll do is they slow down the frame rate to allow better low light performance. But what happens is you'll see that if you're recording at 30 frames a second and you have the auto low light setting on some of these lesser expensive action cameras, what happens is you're going from 30 frames a second, it may go down to 20, it may go down to 19 frames, and you start getting that little jumping effect. And it's because they're trying to slow down the frames to allow more light to hit that sensor to be able to give you a little bit better low light performance, but at the cost of a ton of grain in your video. Imagine you've got an action camera and you're trying to use it like a full frame camera to get an all around, so you can use it for action, you can use it in low light. It just won't happen. So these are good for action. These are good for either a locked off scene where, and by locked off I mean where it's on a tripod, because you're not going to take a Canon M50 and use it like an action camera. You're not going to strap this bad boy to your chest and go skiing down the slopes and expect buttery smooth footage, and for it to handle everything and for it to be small, compact, robust. You may actually damage this camera. These cameras are not meant for action. These type of cameras are. So just a little informative video on why these action cameras suffer from a low light performance. And it's nothing against any of these action cameras. It's just you are limited by the size of that sensor. So hopefully this sheds a little bit of light on get a camera that is for the job at hand. If you're out shooting action, you don't want the M50. You want an action camera. If you're shooting other type of video, get yourself a better camera that is designed for the job at hand. So that's why low light suffers with these action cameras. I hope you guys found this video informative. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, consider subscribing. And until the next video, I'll talk to you later. Bye.